Good morning, Armor Down. Welcome to Armor Down Morning Training 2022. Done this a lot. Done this style of just trying to get the practice out in a way that's super easy for me to keep doing and super easy for you to have access to. So anyway, welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're interacting with the training. I really can't think of anything more important than learning how to be in the present moment in a kind of meaningful way. It's not just like escape from life, but being fully present, and how big of a deal that is, especially now. So I was in the gym the other day, and I've got a foot injury, so I've been wearing one of these boots, right? And so I just have to walk really slow. And so as I was walking slowly through the gym, probably looking like a weirdo, it just occurred to me how fast everything was happening around me. It was just people were on the move, going this way, going that way, doing this, doing that. And I just kind of remember thinking to myself, where are we trying to get? What's the goal here? It's the next thing, it's the next job, it's the next goal, it's the next this, it's the next that. It's terrific, good stuff. But what's the point? Is it just more stuff? Is it just this? Is it just that? I don't think that's very helpful right now. I think right now, where we are in the pandemic, where we are in the evolution of our culture, where we are in the evolution of our relationships to each other, I think one of the things that we can really pay attention to and could really benefit us is getting really connected in a regular way to the present moment. Mindfulness, by its very definition, is an engagement with the present moment in its fullest manifestation. So one way to think of it is non-judgmental, right? You don't add a label to it. Because you don't add a label to it, you're able to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Say, okay, cool. What's the point of that? Well, less stress. Okay, that's kind of the basic answer, right? It's less stress. If you're in a performance environment, it's less stress, greater performance, all this other kind of stuff. Well, the actual kind of evolving science around what happens when we become deeply present on a regular basis is that we change the way our brain processes the world around us. Literally changes the way the world is processed by our brain. And so I'll tell you a little story about kind of what we have to contend with as veterans, and then how this story kind of evolves as we're now all veterans of a pandemic. And where we're headed is uncertain. So the thing to do is to give your brain the best capability for managing what's going on. And the best way to do that, this is the neatest stuff, and I'll expound upon this over time. The best way to do that is by literally turning your brain into this quiet, participatory presence that's settled into the moment, that's calm. And what it actually does is it changes the way you process information. It changes the way you predict information. So here's a story. Let's just say the brain evolved not to respond to life, but to predict it. Let's just say that your brain isn't this thing that kind of sits there passively waiting for information. Let's just say your brain is actually constantly generating the world around you. Well, what does that mean? Let me give you another example. You ever seen a helicopter blade or a propeller? I mean, it's got holes in it, right? So there's holes in the blade, but when it starts spinning, when it gets into motion, you see a circle. Let's just say that the brain is doing that for your body. Let's just say that every aspect of your body is in flow, is in motion, and that what's holding it together is your brain's capacity to project a stable reality on something that's constantly moving. The same way a propeller, you see a circle, that's a projection. It's not really a circle. That circle's not really there. But because the brain is able to put the pieces together, you're able to see it. So let's just say we're something like that. Let's just say we are this constantly moving kind of thing, and our brain isn't just interpreting stuff. Our brain is actually creating. Right? Let's just say that, okay? So we got a creative brain. The reality is being created. The way things are is being created. And in the process of creation, we're getting feedback. So in one sense, the brain's creating, it's projecting, it's putting it out there. But in the other sense, the brain is receiving. And so it's adjusting its prediction, it's adjusting its presentation of the world around you according to what your senses feel in the present moment. Okay? Now, our story as veterans begins in basic training. All right? So when you go into basic training, your brain has a particular set of patterns predicted about you in your life. You go into basic training and all those predictions they get zeroed out. The military does this on purpose. The military shaves your head, changes your looks, makes you look like everyone else. It gives you a uniform, gives you an entirely new way to process information, a new way of looking at your peers, a way to fit in, a mission, a structure. And so it basically zeroes out, not completely, but it takes everything that you've kind of created, this identity you've created, this experience with your life that you've created, and then gives you a whole new way of interacting with the world. Now, in the military, the predictive process of the mind is correlated to survival and the mission. Okay. So your brain has developed these skill sets to survive, to perpetuate you inside a military environment. You go into a combat environment, you add that emphasis on survival. And what you've got is a recipe for not only an identity, but a brain that's thinking and predicting a life, a future around that military identity. So inside the military, your brain, which here's the phrase I want you to take away from today, your brain, which is a predictive processor, okay? It's putting out predictions and receiving inputs, correcting its predictions based on the inputs and putting it out. But it's happening at like a rate that you can't even imagine. Think of like the most powerful computers we got right now, like a Tesla computer that's trying to predict the world around it. Nothing compared to your brain, nothing. So anyway, you've got this processor going. Inside, the predictions make sense. The hierarchy of how you're associating your identity with the world around you, it all fits together pretty well. You're able to interact in the military. You have to. If you don't get rank, you don't pass the test, whatever. So all that's going really well. Boom. Move out of that. You've got a predictive processor that's processing military, right? You go out of the military, now you're in civilian. Your predictive processor is still associated with military, okay? So you're literally processing, predicting, interacting with a future that you're projecting into the world, your identity into the world. Your brain is projecting that into the world, and you're getting feedback that doesn't fit the feedback that you used to get in the military. What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to handle that? Well, the basic thing that they're starting to understand now is that when you practice mindfulness, when you get real still, real quiet, get into this kind of quiet meditative state, what happens to that predictive processor is that it starts to turn way down. So it's like a computer that goes into sleep mode instead of a active processing, predicting, analysis, it gets kind of quiet. And then what happens when it gets kind of quiet is you're able to actually change the way the brain predicts the world around you. Seriously, it's the neatest stuff. We're gonna share the new kind of science with you. This is very like the cutting edge stuff. This is like artificial intelligence understanding stuff, right? So we used to understand the body according to our technology, right? So the body is a bunch of levers and pulleys, like the industrial age, and the the mind is like a computer, right? It's just passive thing. You put in inputs and then it spits out stuff. Well, now our brains, our understanding is way more advanced than it used to be. Now I was operating in the past, right? Past armor down trainings were all kind of associated with the old model. The new models, I'm literally like a month into the new understanding. So I'm evolving my understanding of this the same way you are. But we'll pass on this stuff. It's not hokey stuff. This is the stuff that's coming from the latest scientific journals. These are the people that are at the cutting edge of research. They're studying the different aspects of mindfulness and meditation. Like, for example, there's the focused attention style of meditation, right? Where it's you put all your attention on one thing. Typically, that's the breath, right? So everyone kind of knows that, bringing your attention back to the breath. That's called FA, focused attention. Lots of really cool studies about how that works. Another one is called open monitoring, or OM, open monitoring meditation. Basically, that takes your awareness, you just flatten your awareness. So you don't prioritize anything when you do open monitoring. When open monitoring happens, or you're practicing open monitoring, you basically give everything that shows up the same value. So instead of like the story, the narrative of your identity, you kind of settle that into the same level as, oh, I'm aware of that. Oh, I'm aware of the sound of the bird chirping. Oh, I'm aware of the refrigerator fan. Oh, I'm aware of someone walking on steps. You basically even out what you're putting your attention on. So it's everything gets kind of a flat value. It's equanimity is what it's called, a flat value. And you participate at that flat value. And so the processor, it is projecting reality out, okay, and adapting to what your senses bring in. So it's constant, okay? That's why it's called a predictive processor. It's constant. It's so cool. This stuff is really neat. But anyway, you start to flatten that out. That's called open monitoring, and that open monitoring is really great because when you go open monitoring, you flatten everything out. Then you can go deeper into one thing, focused attention, you can go deeper into that. Now, what's really cool is there's another layer called non-dual, which is ND. So non-dual, which means that you basically turn the predictive processor off, and you just interact as the relationship to the whole. So instead of your awareness of your relationship to the whole, you drop that and you're just the relationship to the whole, which is imagine the propeller, right? That makes, when it's going, it makes the circle. Imagine the propeller stops. So there's no longer that circle, right? So you go from that projected identity into just stillness, which is lots of really cool. Metta is a style of meditation around that. But anyway, you stop that and you just kind of sit. Now, I have experienced that kind of interaction with the present moment pretty rarely. That's a layer that I would like to explore more deeply. But what it really is, what I'm really trying to put out there for you is that there's a lot of nuance now that didn't exist before. There's an understanding of what our brains actually do. It's been in Buddhist tradition forever. The Buddhists say your identity is a projection, it's a hologram. Everyone who's studied Buddhism has to contend with that presentation. And for a while, it's like, it's too esoteric, it's too abstracted. Well, now, and for our Western minds, I mean, now it's like with this concept of predictive processing, now it's like, oh, ooh, okay, that makes sense. And so now you can kind of see it. You can kind of see those layers. It doesn't mean you are not you, or your identity isn't real. It just means that how it's generated and how it's maintained and how it's influenced by the way you can practice mindfulness and meditation, it should have more thickness to it. It should have some more kind of, it shouldn't be so transparent. The practice is now much more foundationally valuable than it was like, it's good for you. You can help with stress. No, it's not. I've lived for 41 years of my life without this understanding. So 41 years of my life, I have perpetuated a predictive processor, my identity. I've perpetuated this processor without any understanding of how it worked. I've been operating with something that's super, super sophisticated for my entire life without having any idea that this is how it works. So now I have an idea of how it works. And it's like, gosh, this is great. So I'll never forget taking my first mindfulness class in it was 2010, I'd say, and just thinking, man, I got to get this out here. This is crazy good. This is so helpful. I got to share with the warrior community. And I've been just doing that since. And so now it's a new evolution of the same thing I've been doing for the past 12 years, and I'm just doing it again in a different form. So happy to be here, happy to kind of get this started again. We'll do more practice next time. But if you're watching this video and you've watched it all the way through, I appreciate it. Thursday, we'll get more into actual practice, but I just wanted to use this as an introduction and say hello and say thanks for being a part of this. And I hope you find it useful. So, all right. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the cushion later.